Welcome to the module on understanding trauma and how it appears in the classroom setting provided by AmericaScores Cleveland. After completion of this module, we hope that you will be able to define trauma, identify sources of trauma, and understand how trauma may present in the elementary or middle school age child. Trauma is a person's response to a negative experience or event. Examples can include natural disasters, parental divorce, loss of loved ones, abuse, poverty, racism, and many more factors. Trauma can also be generational, in that it is passed from parent to child. A child witnessing their parent process direct trauma influences a child's behavior to be more fearful, anxious, and sensitive to danger. This trauma can go back many generations, which in turn might make it difficult for a child to understand where these feelings are coming from, as they themselves have not experienced any of these events. Likewise, the child might even come from a household they perceive as loving and safe. Therefore, it is important that in many situations we avoid blaming the parents for a child's trauma, as it is a rule of thumb that most parents do the best they can given their life experiences and circumstances. Trauma comes from an event or circumstance that results in physical harm, emotional harm, and/or life-threatening harm. This slide provides a few examples of the circumstances that can fall under these three categories. However, remember that trauma is experienced by every child or individual differently. In the end, trauma is what a person defines it to be, and what one person perceives as traumatic, another might not. Overall, trauma is an event that has negative effects on the person's mental health, physical health, emotional health, social well-being, and/or spiritual well-being. Just one of these areas of life can be impacted, or all of them can. Adverse childhood experiences may cause children to distrust others, have difficulty self-regulating, have problematic interactions with peers and authority figures, and always be on high alert. This comes from a heightened sense of danger and can be difficult for children to process. A child who has experienced trauma may act out and seem to test the limits of an adult's patience, not follow directions, and be overly mistrustful of others. This behavior is likely coming from a need for the child to have some control in aspects of their lives, when they often feel their life circumstances are out of their control. Every child reacts to trauma differently. Conversely to acting out, a child who has experienced trauma may also be quiet, reserved, a loner, unwilling to participate in group activities, and may choose social isolation whenever possible. This behavior likely stems from a child wishing to be unnoticed or avoid similar traumatic situations or experiences. Again, it is important to remember that trauma presents differently for everyone, and the fact that a child has experienced or is experiencing trauma might not always be obvious. As adults, it is important that we keep an eye out for these emotions and behaviors and respond accordingly. Children who have experienced trauma may have many behavioral and learning issues, including hyperarousal, aggression, struggles with memory, poor school performance, and inattentiveness. Likewise, children who have experienced trauma are more likely to miss school or after-school activities such as AmericaScores writing and soccer sessions. In a survey of AmericaScores coaches, many coaches identified that poet athletes missing sessions was a stressor. This routine missing of sessions might be a response to trauma in a poet athlete's life. By watching for these behaviors, you as caregivers and role models in these children's lives can recognize that these children are not being bad or intentionally causing annoyance and frustration, but have suffered a trauma in their life which is playing out in their behavior at school. During this module, we hope you learned 1. The definition of trauma, 2. Some sources of trauma. Remember that trauma can come from numerous sources, and what causes one person trauma may not affect another person in the same way. And finally, how trauma behaviors present in elementary and school-age children. If you have any additional questions, please contact the AmericaScores Cleveland program staff at the contact information here. Learn more at americascorescleveland.org. Thank you for completing the Direct Trauma Training module. Access to additional resources from the presentation can be found here.